Hello world, it's Nikolai here from Lab with part 6 on our development series for expansion number 4, Imbalanced Factions. First, I really want to thank everybody who ordered the demo sheets. Those are these 7-piece folding sheets, which work great as a replacement for the base game sheets and do provide you with a preview of how Imbalanced Factions will work in practice by having the finalized versions of the base units with their new abilities and everything. And I wanted to announce here that I managed to include a couple of things for everyone that weren't in the previous development video. The first one was this center section here of the printed sheets wasn't really usable so far. And so I found a way to, incorporate something that could be split between the two separate pieces that come out of this print. And so that's the battle step. And here it is. Battle step A and battle step B on the two sides correspondingly. This is just to help you, recall quickly which goes after which, and specifically the three different sections in battle step B as they differ to battle step A. And battle step A, of course, is the base game and Rise of the Empire order of things that happen during a combat step. Okay, so that's included actually on everybody's orders. And so I'm really happy that I managed to sneak this in. The other thing that sort of came up during production is I did realize that for everybody who ordered just one of these, it will be difficult to use them for two people, even though you can place them in between. At some point, you may want to just say, for example, maybe cut them, or you want to order a second pair. And so I did provide a solution for everyone. So you have to discover this on your own. But for the later orders, I redesigned a little bit how the center section looks like. As it wasn't possible to cut these in the middle. It just the way that it was mirrored on the other side. If you cut them, essentially one side will have a mixed rebel and imperial section. So I did redesign a little bit this center section to have other units. This even improved the overall layout a little bit. And so now if you cut the center section, it will cut cleanly on both sides, so that you can separate them if you need to. I doubt everyone would want to do that, but it is there as a feature. And so everyone has a solution that ordered these has a solution on this one way or another. And so I'm really happy with that. So going to something more interesting, and that will be the hidden influence of Star Wars Unlimited. It's a very popular, very expensive card game, which I tried a while ago. But there is actually something there that I really sort of liked and implemented in a way that I didn't realize until recently. And so you have these effects or sort of like keywords that define a certain mechanic. And on the sort of like more base game cards, they are fully defined. And on sort of more premium cards, they are just, you have the keyword. And so I realized I've been doing the same thing on Imbalanced Factions. Is I have, let's say, a base unit where I have the mandatory description of the full effect. And then next to it, I have like a keyword, in this case, an icon. And later on, once I define this, I'm just using the icon here in a small version or in a full scale version here to represent that same effect, so I don't have to write it down. This saves enormous amount of space and is especially useful when translating this, since obviously the icon will look exactly the same on every language. And here's another example. We have the ability here right next to the icon. Once it's coded, I'm free to use that icon. And so this influence, I have to really acknowledge it. It's been there, I just realized it, but I really like it, and I'm gonna keep at it for the going forward. Next, I think it's time we do some updates on all the units for this specific expansion. So there's 4 Imperial, 4 Rebel units. There are some quality of life improvements, and there are some minor balance changes. So let's go over each of the 8 units now, starting off with the probe droid. This actually was one of the hardest ones to balance, if you believe me, but it's sort of like as a template. I decided that instead of having a weaker sort of combat unit, it's better just to have a dedicated scout unit. And so when we sacrifice the combat power, we gain the ability to produce essentially 2 droids for every triangle production we have. And apart from that, I took the opportunity to explain the black and red sort of split here that's horizontal rather than vertical. And the idea here is that if you have a vertical split, it means this or that. So it means like an or statement. If you have a horizontal split, it means an and statement. So both are true. So in this case, this unit health is both black and red. So it can be hit by both dice equally effectively. And this is another disadvantage, of course, just to offset the ability to produce 2 units, which you can leave after your forces conquer the planet, just to keep this planet and keep your force structure rather than just leaving stormtroopers as you go. So this should help the Empire more efficiently conquer and retain planets, of course, at a greater risk, since if the rebels attack a planet that just has a probe droid, it has no defenses to essentially fight back at all, so it will be destroyed with no chance to inflict any damage. But that's a bit beside the point, it's all balance. And so from now on, when we are implementing this specific feature to list both black and red as the health value, we're going to use a horizontal, and we're going to use the vertical split for the dice. Okay, next one, Purge Trooper, right. So here we have the other option where the Purge Trooper is now more difficult to hit and can roll either red or black dice. Of course, they're a very versatile unit. They can use various weapons, including close weapons or heavy weapons. So they're expertly trained, and this is reflected in their skill to be like a very hard to hit multi-purpose unit. Now, I did make a change here. It's sort of like a more considerable change. And this was not that this wasn't working. It's just when I included the unit alongside all other units, and it looked very similar to functionality of the Dark Trooper. And I wanted them to be distinct unit that is specifically designed to target Jedis. And so rather than just flipping green die, which does the job very well, there is another way to approach this, and this is to swap 2 hits, either black or red, with 1 direct hit. Essentially, you are sacrificing firepower to be more focused. And this is very reflective, I think, in their feature. It will help them target specifically Jedi, which are immune to regular hits, since they also have green health. So I think this is a really nice balance change, and it will allow this unit to more to take a very distinct role in the overall lineup. Security droid. Okay, here it's mostly like quality of life improvements. For example, here, from now on, when I'm defining ability, and in this case, I will even expand the definitions to even basic abilities, just so that they are right there in front of you. For example, the structure, I will sort of indicate where that ability will eventually be listed, so that you can both have the definition, the icon, and the location of the icon in the future right there on your sheets. And yeah, again, here we have a change in vertical to horizontal movement to indicate that these units are essentially can be targeted both by red or black dice equally effectively. Okay, Juggernaut. Very few changes here, you barely notice them, but the main improvement, of course, was going from a text ability, which obviously in English barely fitted, and it would not have fitted in other languages, to clearly defined icon ability, which is already defined by other units, so it's really easy to implement here. The Rebel Pathfinder, again, absolutely no changes here, just quality of life improvement and the introduction of the new visual style with the recessed areas for no effect or when we have effect, and the hexagon health shape. The two triangles taking more effectively the increased area available for that. Rebel Partisan, and here I had to walk back the ability a little bit just so that I can fit whatever text I wanted to have, and I leave some room for translations. The idea was that I originally wanted it to be a unit that can move on its own without transport, reflecting their diverse and versatile nature to adapt to circumstances. But at the end I thought they are, of course, trying troublemakers to a specific location. They usually take recruits from the local population, and so usually if you sort of deploy them into a specific area, those units are local and will be specific to that system. And it doesn't make sense to move them elsewhere. And so the unit lost its ability to travel between systems, but it's still just as combat effective and can remain in combat a little bit longer, and will be converted to recruit once it's destroyed automatically. The speeder truck, here I have deepened the sort of like a truck effect, meaning it's more versatile. It can now roll either black or red die to sort of more heavily use this new mechanic in all the new units, and it can be targeted like a regular truck just as easily by troopers and by, like, say, tanks or heavier units. And here we clearly see the definition for or and how they differ. And now that we've defined it here, it will be used from now on in the shortened icon format. And by the way, whenever I do these definitions, I make sure that I have one definition for each ability on the Imperial and on the Rebel side. So you as the Imperial will always be able to refer to everything on your sheet from your sheet, and the Rebel player will be able to do the same. But it's one definition per sheet. Okay, the Starhawk battleship. Here we have a basic ability in text which barely fits, and here we have a much more, designed ability that is just perfect. So I will define this on another ship, and I'm going to use it on the Starhawk. So there's two ships that will use this feature to sort of decrease the defensive potential of the enemy. And so the other ship that has this ability will work very similarly to the Starhawk. It looks very similar and has a certain similarity in the way it targets that unit. So it makes sense for them to have a similar ability. And the cool thing here is you have half of the symbol clearly visible, and then it transitions to like a minus. So it indicates that you're removing that ability, and then the number, how many of those you are removing. And so this works beautifully to indicate the prevention of special symbols. Okay, now let's talk about what I call a unit layout matrix. And so I mentioned earlier with the Purge Trooper that once I put this unit into this matrix, I realized it sort of covers the same spectrum of abilities. It looks similar to another unit. And this only makes possible if you have an overall layout where you have all the units and you're looking at them as a whole, and you're sort of making sure that each one has a distinct purpose and is at the correct location. And so this matrix will have to abide by certain organizational rules. So obviously, we're going to have a Rebel section and Imperial section. Within those, we're going to have a Rise of the Empire section and Imbalanced Forces section. we're gonna have a distinct ground and space areas, and vertically we're gonna subdivide them into these layers. So light units at the top, then a bit more specialized light units, then we have the medium units, and the heavy units at the very bottom. Now this is the ideal. Of course, there will be some exceptions. It's not possible to arrange everything perfectly, but that's the goal. And so we do have two more sort of criteria. Since we have units that use different dice, I will try to arrange them so that units that predominantly use, like say, black dice are on one side, then units with the red dice are on the opposite side, and in between we have the support units with the green dice. And finally, when arranging these units, it's very important that when the two sheets are faced one another, the corresponding units from each faction are facing one another. So that if the Imperial player wants to see what's the exact opposite of the X-Wing, they can just project visually and see that the TIE Fighter is the sort of equivalent unit. Same for the Stormtrooper versus the Rebel Trooper, and so on. And so how this looks like in practice, here it is. That's the unit layout matrix. So there's actually 108 unit variations. Obviously, you divide them by half. That's 54 units in total per faction. And yeah, we could do this, we could dive this and talk about this all day, but I will cover the remaining units within the relevant expansion. So everything on the wider front lines will be in a follow-up video. But for the moment, it's important that we have everything filled out. All the effects are created. The layout is almost decided. And so we can consider this expansion complete in terms of units and abilities. And so we just left to do some refinements. So quality control is what's coming next for me. And that's basically, opening each unit, making sure that I've already have everything lined up perfectly to a pixel perfect, tolerance. And so I want to make sure the shades are correct, the blurring and all the other effects are perfect, the correct words are used, all the spell checking is done. And yeah, we have the same design, layout, and quality applied throughout on all the units. And of course, there could be some minor changes to arrangements. Looking at this on my TV, I actually have this as a 4K wallpaper, which I could make downloadable from my store. If you guys want, just leave a note on the comment. It makes it easy to review the expansion as a whole and see, make sure everything makes sense. And, it's a cool idea, but it takes a while to arrange this and make sure it's fully updated. So that's next. Okay, so we're just about done. I want to do like a recap on the whole expansion, just so people who are maybe coming up to this video for the first time, have a ton of questions. So expansion number 4, Imbalanced Faction, consists of the following elements. So we have 2 7-fold dial-sided unit sheets. One side will be the regular units with their regular abilities, including the new units from this expansion and also wider front lines. So all the units from all fan expansions will be on one sheet. The other side will be the same units, but with the enhanced new abilities provided by this new expansion. Okay, so that's the first element, and that's the biggest element, the 2 7-fold dial sheets. The next one is the advanced tactic cards. So there will be 8 new cards, 1 for each of the new units, 4 per faction. That is if you're playing side A. You can technically include them in side B, but the whole point of side B is to be able to play without advanced tactic cards if you want, and retain the thematic element of each unit. The next piece of the expansion is the 12 action cards. So that includes 1 unique action card to introduce or highly recommendly introduce the new unit, linked to a specific leader. And there will be 4 more action cards which are from the original game but were slightly modified to reflect the ability that you may not have advanced tactic cards in your game. And so they should give you another option if you, for example, like it's a trap here, That's an original card. It's just modified with a separate second possibility there that you can use second effect. So that's the main point, the sheets, the advanced tactic cards, and the action cards. Now, there's actually 5 secret bonuses or like hidden surprises I will have inside. They're really cool. I'll just say they're probably worth an expansion on its own, but I'll just include them since they are thematic and structural, and I cannot really separate them without breaking the production process. Finally, let's talk about tokens and miniatures. So for the miniatures, I will have a partnership with other stores to make them and produce them, and I will give my recommendations which miniatures I think are suitable. If you have an idea, you can drop them in the comments. I'm accepting suggestions for the specific miniatures, and these are for the 8 units that are part of this expansion. So we will be looking to use miniatures for the Starhawk battleship, for the speeder truck, for the Rebel Pathfinder, the Rebel Partisan, Purge Trooper, Probe Droid, Security Droid, and the Juggernaut. So we're gonna need miniatures for those. We have to choose one and package them together with the included recommendations of how many you need. It's not a hard process, but I don't think it's essential since I won't be creating the files. We'll just have to use whatever is available, either from another game or we have to find something that's available on the market and modify it slightly. So that's the miniatures. I will actually have tokens available as well, but it's not a requirement to design them now since I design all the tokens together once I have all the expansions sorted out in terms of cards and printed material, since I can order these. And once I order the printing components, I can start working on the tokens since I use like a separate shop for that and might have my own cutting machines that I hope to use as well. So I'm not worried about the tokens and miniatures for the moment. But apart from that, the expansion is feature complete and it just requires some refinement to get it in shape. And finally, just to recap where this expansion goes. So we have the 2025 edition of Galactic Struggle. This will form the basis of the new, what I call Box 1. Box 1 will be exactly the same as the other boxes. It will include Galactic Struggle exactly as it is. And in the spare space I have between the 2 boxes, we will fit everything from this expansion, number 4. So box 1 will include expansion number 1, Galactic Struggle, and expansion number 4, Wider Front Lines, Imbalanced Factions. So that's number 4. And that's it for today. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, drop them below. And until the next video, may the force be with you.